Hello, everybody, and welcome to Talkin' Baseball on this Saturday as we get ready for Game 2 between the Giants and the Miami Marlins. It is Labor Day weekend. It's the end of summer, and always a good marker for Monday, which would be Labor Day. If there was a game, we would do a show and talk about who would be leading the divisions and the wild card and all that. It's the final marker of the season, but there's no game on Monday. So we've got games this weekend. And then, of course, Arizona comes in on Tuesday, which the beginning of 3, and it should be an interesting time of baseball for the Giants. But last night they got a win, 3-1 over the Marlins, take the first game of this series, 3-6-1 for the Giants and 1-4-0 for the Marlins. And I thought to myself, I said, boy, the season is coming down to about 6 outs here, as the Giants were trailing 1-0 going into that 8th inning last night. And Blake Snell pitched a great game. He may be the best pitcher in baseball. He just might be that. Probably going to opt out, probably going to get a deal that's, some way north of $100 million for a few years. I don't know if the Giants are going to be involved with that. But for him last night, 7 innings, a 4-hit ball. He gave up that 1 run to the Marlins in that 7th inning as they got a hit. Derek Hill, who used to be a Giant, got on, stole a base. Boy, Patrick Bailey's starting to throw sidearm again at catcher, so he's got to deal with that. He's got to throw the ball a little bit better. But he stole a bag, and then Hensley got a hit, and the Giants were down 1-0. But they came back. Tyler Rogers ended up getting the win. And they came back with a good 8th inning. And it'll be reflected in the lineup today because the guy who got the inning started, Encarnacion, got the big base hit off Mike Baumann. Look, the Marlins bullpen is the worst in baseball. They traded everybody, and they did that. We'll talk about it during the show today. They made all sorts of trades. They brought in a couple of good players from the Orioles, Connor Norby and Stowers, who is a Stanford kid, probably be in the lineup today. They brought in a whole bunch of players in these trades, but they have no bullpen left. And Mike Baumann, believe it or not, remember him? He was with the Giants for maybe 3 or 4 games, and then he was let go. He's with 5 teams this year, the Marlins being the 5th, set some sort of record. But they left him in there in that 8th inning, and he was all over the place, but they just don't have the arms in the bullpen coming out of that Colorado series. So Encarnacion got a base hit. McRae, who's not in the lineup today, he struck out. Then my player of the week, you'll hear about that later, Yastrzemski, got a walk, and then Ramos got a walk, and on a knuckle curve that they tried to throw to him on a 3-2 pitch that was nowhere near it. And then Conforto strikes out, so now there's 2 out, bases loaded, and they bring in Soriano. And here comes Matt Chapman, who is my sort of co-player of the week here. And boy, he's the one guy. You give him a pitch to hit, not a fastball up, which we know he has struggle. He struggles with that high speed, and especially up in the strike zone. But he got a slider, something that just broke right over the plate, right in the middle of the plate, and he didn't miss it. And he doesn't miss pitches like that. And he cleared the bases with a double, and the Giants scored 3 runs. Then Fitzgerald ended up striking out, and then Walker came in and made quick work of the Marlins in the 9th inning with a couple of strikeouts and a tap to first base. So that's the way it ended last night, 3-1 for the Giants to win it over the Marlins. So a game they had to get. There was touch and go there for a while, but Snell pitched great. 33,606 last night, 2 hours, 21 minutes. The umpire last night, it's worth mentioning him, Jim Wolf. The guy was, let's put it this way, he had a very large strike zone, okay? And if that box means anything, if you threw it near the box on either the outside corner or the inside corner, you got a strike. Down in the strike zone, it was a little different. But, boy, this was the old Eric Gregg and Greg Maddux of years ago in the playoffs, so they called everything a strike. And he was like that last night, and Snell took advantage of it, and Aller, who pitched well for the Marlins, he was good last night. He had good stuff. They both took advantage of the strike zone, and that kept the game close. But for the Giants last night, it's their last 17 games now. They're 10-7. They're 19-13 in the last 32 games. But the interesting stat I saw was that their last 19 games, 14 of them have been 2 runs or less, and that goes back to the hitting. Shaina Rubin is going to join us after my open here from the Chronicle. We're going to talk about the offense, and really, you're talking about 19 games, and they're 7-7 in the 14 of the 19 that ended up 2 runs or less, decided by 2 runs or less, and that means you got to hit. They got a good bullpen, we know it. And I think the bullpen is really solid. I've said that all along. I think that's going to be their saving grace. But you've got to be able to get the offense going. Offensively, today for the lineup, Yaz leads off. And this is against a righty, Edward Cabrera, who really stuck it to the Giants earlier in the year. This kid went 6 innings, 5 hits, a run, no homers, 1 walk, and 10 strikeouts against the Giants. But he's one of those, you never know what he's going to have that day. And he's, he's coming out of a start in Colorado, and always that next game out of Colorado is always a little trouble for a pitcher coming out of the altitude. But he goes today. So the lineup, Yastrzemski leads off, then Mark Canha is going to hit second today against, this is against the grain here for Bob Melvin. No Wade at first base today. He's really been struggling. Then they got Ramos third, Chapman fourth, Conforto, who I guess is not going to get waived. I thought he would be a great candidate to be waived and get one of the get Meckler up here, get Matos up here, get Luciano up here, and maybe September 1st they will get some of those guys up when the rosters expand. Knapp was outrighted to Sacramento. Maybe they'll bring him back. I know they wanted a third catcher. But Conforto is in there. It's a DH. Fitzgerald has dropped down in the lineup to 6. Bailey is hitting 7th, and boy, he is really struggling at the plate. And Canarcione is in the lineup today. They've got him in there, and Wisely is at second base today. So Estrada, as you know, yesterday was outrighted to Sacramento. It was interesting, and Shane will bring it up when we talk with her, I know. The Estrada situation was interesting because if they released him, he could have gone to any team for the major league minimum and probably hooked on with somebody. But for someone to take him on the waiver wire, they'd have to take the rest of his contract, which is $1 million contract. So they sent him to Sacramento, and he's got to accept that assignment to protect his contract because he's got less than 5 years in the big league. So if he said, no, I don't want to go to Sacramento, just release me, well, they'd release him but not owe him any money. And if he didn't get picked up, he's out a couple of $1 million. So he's not going to do that. So he gets outrighted to Sacramento to protect his salary, and that's where he is, which probably the Giants did it for the reason of protecting second base. Because if Schmidt, who doesn't hit at all, or Wisely get hurt, then maybe you got to bring Estrada back to play second base. I don't think they're ready to turn it over to Luciano yet. I'm not sure what they're going to do with Luciano when all is said and done anyway. So that's a little bit of what's inside of the Giants. But Mason Black pitches today. He's back. Mason Black, the last time I looked it up, last time he pitched was May 23rd in relief against the Pirates. His last start was May 17th against Colorado. He pitched well, they say, at Sacramento. And look, the Marlins, the Marlins can hit a little bit. They've got some young players. And look, Snell killed him yesterday. Snell is going to stop anybody. But you got to be careful with the Marlins. They can swing the bat a little bit. And Mason Black has got to be careful today dealing with this Marlin team. Pitching-wise, if Cabrera gives him that 6 innings, you want to get into that Marlin bullpen, and then good things can happen, as I saw last night. And that's really the problem that they have. But they can swing the bat a little bit. Some of these kids can do it, and they can run. Derek Hill, who used to be a Giant. Otto Lopez is there, used to be a Giant. Everyone used to be a Giant. They end up with the Marlins. They're in the lineup, and they can run a little bit, and they can swing the bat a little bit. So Mason Black's got to be careful. He's 0-1 on the year. He's a righty. We thought good things about him coming out of spring training. He's from Scranton, Pennsylvania, the home of the McCarthy boys. And, of course, Joe is the Giants had him, and Jake is playing great for Arizona. And we'll see him, obviously, on Tuesday night when Arizona comes in. You want to have lefties going against Arizona. And the way it's lining up, I think Harrison and Snell should pitch against Arizona, I think, 2 of the 3 games at Oracle next week, which is very important. You want lefties to try to neutralize Marte, who should be back, Jock Peterson, Carroll, and McCarthy, people like that, and the catcher, Del Castillo, the kid who's filling in for Moreno. So lefties can get it done against the Diamondbacks. So we'll see. Kershaw did pitch against the Diamondbacks last night for the Dodgers. What a crazy game last night. First of all, Kershaw left after an inning. His big toe hurt. He's got some sort of tendonitis or something going on with his big toe, and he had to leave the game and may go on the injured list. And they just want to get him back for the playoffs, but that's always a roll of the dice for him at any point. But they ended up winning 10-9 last night. Ohtani hits his 43rd home run last night, stole his 43rd base. It's really incredible what he's doing. And the Dodgers held on. The Diamondbacks had 4 in the 9th, and the Dodgers held on to win 10-9. The Dodgers pitching, I'm telling you, I've said this for months, haven't I, about the Dodger pitching? It is a work in progress, and I'm not sure where it's going. But you're talking about Walker Buehler. Gavin Stone is going to pitch today. You just don't know what Bobby Miller, and that bullpen of people that get lit up all the time, and they're being used all the time. So that was last night, but we got Arizona and the Dodgers tonight down here in the desert. They had 46,000, a sellout last night in Arizona. There's a lot of excitement around Arizona baseball right now. For the Giants, they're 3-1 against the Marlins. Against the National League East, they're 16-15. This is it for the National League East. The Giants won't see him again. It's all the West, and as I said, Baltimore and Kansas City in there. And then you got St. Louis at the end of the year. These are tough games for the Giants. So this is the end of the National League East. They're 16-15 with the East. Giants at home, doing all right, 39-28. That's 67 games, so they got 14 more. And they'll be in the 40s. As I always said, you like to get to 50. Probably not going to get to 50, but they may. Who knows? But they should be in the mid to high 40s when it's all said at home, you'd think. Since the break, they're 21-18. They will have a winning August, which doesn't happen often for this ball club. But they will have a winning August. They're 14-12 no matter what happens today. The Marlins are 24-42. The Giants, and John Shea wrote a whole article about it today, about the plan of Farhan Zaidi, and it went wrong and it just didn't come together. What can they do in September? Well, the one thing they can do is hit with runners in scoring position. Last night they did go 3 for 8, and Chapman got the big hit. That was the huge one. Miami was 1 for 6. But on the road trip and just runners in scoring position in general, that's the problem. And is it choke up on the bat, go the other way? There's got to be a different approach. And there's got to be a different approach because they're not that bad of hitters. And they could be calm and just control that at bat. But that's the issue for me, is that runners in scoring position. When they lead after 8 innings, which they did last night, they're 55-3. And in a 1 or 2 run game, they're now 33-38. So 71 of their games, of their 130, how many have they played here? 136 games are 1 or 2 run games, 33-38. But they did come back and win, and they've got a lot of comeback wins. They're 32-30 there. So that's a look at what happened last night. Wild card standings, it's, believe me, and I say this with all honesty and with all humility, it's not over yet. And, I could say, look, when they're 6 back with 5 to go, but look, if you're 10 back with 20 to go, it's trouble. You know that. It's going to be over. They are basically 8 back of Atlanta with 26 to go. Now, look, Atlanta has been pitching great. They've got the Phillies tonight, Max Fried and Wheeler, so that could go in the Giants' favor. But Atlanta has gone 19 games in a row with their starting pitcher giving up 3 earned runs or less. Now, is that going to go on forever? Look, Arcia hit 2 home runs last night. Sean Murphy, who can't hit at all, he hit a home run last night. So they're getting big hits. They're scoring enough runs to win, and their bullpen is pretty good. The closer's real good. But Atlanta is vulnerable. I say this, I still think they are. And they've got 61 losses with 27 to go. The Mets get the White Sox today. How about that? They've got 105 losses. Quintana goes today against Martin, who was pretty good for the White Sox when we saw him. But they've got 64 losses. They're 3 back. Then the Cubs, who are winning today 5-3. That's in the top of the 8th. They've been playing good ball. Sarah Sanchez of Bleed Cubby Blue is going to be with us today. I love her. She gives a great report. She's going to be with us. They've got 66 losses. They're 5 back. The Giants with 68 are 6.5 back, but on that loss column it's 7. But you have to add 1 more in because of the tiebreaker, so they're really 8 back. And the Cardinals did win today over the Yankees, so they're back up to 500. They're 68 and 68. So the point is, Atlanta's got 61 losses, and if you go all the way down to the Cardinals, it's 68 with 27 left to go. So you go 6-1, they go 2-4. All of a sudden, it's very exciting. So, as I said many times, I'll give them to the end of next weekend. I did say the end of the Arizona series. Maybe I'll extend it a little bit. But after the Arizona series, we should get a good idea where they are. That'll be 5 more games down, and there will only be 21 left at that point. And at that point, you'd like to have it 3 or 4 back in that loss column so you could pick it up. So that's the story of baseball. It's Edward Cabrera today, a big kid, throws hard. It's Labor Day weekend. It's a holiday weekend. School's back in session. Football's coming up. My goodness, how the time flies, doesn't it? But baseball is a grind. It is a long season. You get tired in September. Everybody does. And I always say about players, don't fall in love with them in September and March because things are different. And some players are thinking about their golf game, and others are fighting for playoff positions, and you never know who you're playing at that time. So it's Mason Black back up with the Giants. He goes today against Edward Cabrera. All right, Shaina Rubin joins us next. She covers the Giants for the Chronicle. Had a good week of columns and stories this week in the Chronicle. We'll talk to Shaina about her observations about this ball club and more when we come back right after this. Vance, great to have you back with us as we get ready for Giants baseball today. Game 2 between the Giants and the Miami Marlins, a game the Giants desperately need to win. Last night they won the game 3-1. It was touch and go for a while. As I said to myself, the Giants' season's coming down to about the last 6 outs. Then they made something happen and ended up winning the game 3-1. Shaina Rubin joins us. She covers the Giants for the San Francisco Chronicle. Shaina, how are you today?
I'm great. How are you, Marty?
Oh, very, very well, and looking forward to this game today. But going back, let's talk a little bit about last night. Sure. As I said, boy, Snell was fantastic again. Oler matched him pitch for pitch, and I said, boy, they get to the 8th inning, Giants are down a run. This could be trouble. What did you think?
I was thinking they were on the verge of a second consecutive shutout for a while. It kind of snuck up as the game went on. I was like, oh, it's haven't scored, 4 hits. At one point, there was 4 total hits in the game, and it was a somewhat unexpected pitcher's duel. You know, Matt Chapman was the exact right guy to have up in that situation to get the ever-elusive big hit that they needed. It was a compelling at-bat. It was a compelling inning, and it could have been a really ugly loss, and they were one big swing away from another really ugly loss. So I think that was sort of the main takeaway from that game.
Yep, I think there's a deep breath of exhale when Chapman got the hit, and they ended up taking the lead 3-1 after a couple of walks, and that single by Encarnacion got it going. Shaina Rubin with us. Shaina, you did a lot of work this week, good work in the Chronicle, and of course you can read it online as well, sort of taking the team apart and sort of figuring out offense, defense, and the pitching. Let's talk a little bit about your conclusions of what you found when looking at the offense of the Giants, which a lot of people would like to know where it is.
Yeah, it's mostly just a lot of research looking at the numbers, but also trying to compare where the Giants are with some of their other competitors. And I mostly just looked at the teams that they're closest or kind of closest with in the wild card race, which as I was doing the research, they were very quickly slipping further out of the race. But when I started doing the research, they're still somewhat in it. And I mean, offensively, the main conclusion is that what they've been able to do offensively is reflective of their record. Just in an isolated situation or looking at them as a group, honestly, it's not totally surprising. I think going into the season, we knew that there was going to be a lack of punch, a lack of star power. There's always been a clamoring for that big bat that's going to change things and sort of lift the bar a little bit for them. And maybe somewhat as expected, they haven't really gotten that. Elsewhere, they haven't been able to create that in the aggregate with what they have, and there's been a few good stretches, but mostly just been mediocre. And I think that's numbers-wise been most reflected in their numbers with runners in scoring position. Which, if you watch the games, even when they win or don't, those numbers have through the entire season been pretty substandard, and that's actually was kind of reflected in yesterday's game as an example. They got that one hit from Chapman, but where they've struggled the most is against opposing team starting pitchers, and that's could be from the opposing team staff ace or some of the better pitchers in the league to even some unexpected, like, okay, well they should be doing some damage to this guy with a 5+ ERA, but they haven't been able to. And a couple times throughout the season, Bob Melvin has said, trying too hard, putting a lot of pressure on themselves, and not being able to relax and let the game come to them and let the at-bats come to them. And I think that that's been the most consistent thread in what we've seen is most frustrating about their offense.
I thought the lineup was interesting yesterday. Shaina Rubin with us from the Chronicle. That Lamont Wade, they dropped him down to 7th in the order. Now, he got a big double, and after that, Schmidt and McRae struck out, and Yaz got an infield single, and they couldn't score him, so it's 1st and 3rd, and then Ramos flew out to right, and that was really the big threat here until the 8th inning. But Wade in that 7th spot, and Schmidt 8th, McRae 9th. What do you think about the end of the order?
Yeah, I think that was just sort of an example of Melvin trying to switch it up a little bit, give the top and the bottom of the lineup a new look, or, give Wade a breather. And he was saying Yastrzemski is up for anything and can easily slide into the top of the order. So I think it's interesting. I'm not sure if it's going to be something that continues, and I'm not sure in that situation it paid off or not. But I think that having Yastrzemski bat lead off, he had 3 walks last night, so that was an interesting little switch up that you saw some results there.
Yeah, I thought he's had a nice week, really. As I always say, no matter what he does, when at the end of the day he's hitting 240. He could go 3 for 3 or 0 for 6. It's still 240. That's kind of where he is. What do you think about Ramos and the season? Look, he's been fabulous. He came up in May. He's got the 20 home runs and 60-some-odd RBIs. I know he's slowed down quite a bit since the break. What do you think about him?
I think what stood out from on a positive end for him is how he's adjusted to opposing pitchers' adjustments to him. And I think that it was somewhat expected that he would cool off a little bit, but he's still putting together great at-bats. I think that he's not walking a lot, but he's still walking at drawing walks at a decent rate that makes you sort of see his growth at the plate. So I think even though he's not swinging as hot a bat as he was a couple months ago, I think that generally speaking, you see that he's really settled in and is calm and not in his head like he was last year. And that's been the most consistent part of the most consistent, most promising part of his season.
Yeah, and it's a good observation. He is calm no matter what happens. He has remained calm at the plate. That's a great point. I like that. Looking at Bailey, I know he's back from the disabled list and with the oblique, and since he's back, hasn't really done much. And they ended up with a hit last night that didn't matter much. But, boy, he just doesn't hit. They can say he's tired and all that stuff. The guy just doesn't hit. And maybe that may be who he is. He may be a Gold Glove catcher, but the offense maybe just isn't there for him.
I mean, it's night and day with him this season at the plate, right? He was one of their better hitters in the first half. And then as the workload started, he doesn't have a tremendous amount of workload, but he did say last year that he was feeling the toll of the season catch up to him on his legs, and that doesn't seem to be the issue this year, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's sort of mimicking the patterns that he was experiencing last year, and maybe there is a little bit of fatigue that's playing a part in what we're seeing with him at the plate. But I think it's probably shouldn't forget what he did offensively in the first half. So I wouldn't say that it's been a complete failure for him at the plate. It's just been real ugly in the second half, and that's
all right.
That's hard to ignore.
All right, we'll give him the first half and the first half of last year as well. All right, well, we'll see. But for me, as a hitter, the jury is still out a little bit on him. Were you surprised Estrada got outrighted to Sacramento?
Yeah, I understand the reason why they did what they did. I understand the logic. You're paying the rest of his contract anyway. You have the option because he has less than 5 years of service time. He accepted the outright assignment, so it's all kosher. But I think there was some confusion as to why he wasn't just, if he doesn't have a future with the team, why he wasn't just released so that he could get an opportunity now to latch on with another team. So it seems a little bit the optics aren't great, just me speaking, but I understand the logic behind it. It was surprising. I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, I brought that up in some discussion this morning. We're talking about Estrada, that if he was released, that you don't have to pay him the major league minimum for the month. But since he was outrighted, of course, he has to accept that, or else he would lose his salary. And that is something I'm sure he doesn't want to do. All right, so that's where he ended up. Let's talk about the offense. Well, we know the offense right now, and it has struggled. The pitching, Snell was fabulous last night. I mean, he's probably the best pitcher in baseball right now. Today we get Mason Black and tomorrow Logan Webb, and then the Diamondbacks come in, and I'm sure Harrison will be in there, and Birdsong and everything else. What do you think about the pitching right now?
I mean, you're getting two ends of the spectrum a little bit. Or I don't know if that's fair. I think that you're seeing a little bit of what could have been feared or expected in the second half with some of these guys. I think Kyle Harrison, all things considered, has been surprisingly durable given this is his rookie year and he's pitching into innings that he's never had to do before. So he's in a new workload, and all things considered, I think he's handling he's handling it all tremendously. Hayden Birdsong, he's also in a new territory. Blake Snell is practically unhittable at times. Logan Webb, he's been dealing with a couple little things, but he's sort of been the anchor. Overall, I think they're pitching the high bar that was set at the trade deadline that this is going to be the best rotation in baseball. It was a high bar and it made sense on paper, but I think that we're seeing the reality of the individual situations, which is hasn't been perfect. With Robbie Ray especially, he is fresh off of a significant layoff, and I think that it was fair to expect that he might run into an injury bump like he has again. So, it's there's so much good on paper, and we've seen so much good from some of from Snell, from all of them, but we're seeing where the pits in the road are with how good they can actually get and how far they can actually carry them.
Shaina, John Shea wrote a good article today about Farhan Zaidi, and the plan didn't work. And what can he do in September? Is there anything he can do now to look? They're still in the race, and I always say, 1 5-game winning streak. Atlanta's pitching has been great. Is it going to continue to go 19 games in a row, give me three earned runs or less for the starters? Is there anything that can happen in September here that can get this team going?
That's a good question. Yes, they could start winning more games. I don't know how more nuance it can get other than that. They can, the pieces that are supposed to fall in place need to start falling in place more consistently. They need to start executing in the ways that they are supposed to be executing. Maybe the pressure of trying to catch up to everyone else lessens a little bit, and they feel more relaxed at the plate, and the offense starts to sink into some sort of rhythm. Maybe the merit of their pitching staff can lift them a little higher. I don't know if it gets more complicated or nuanced than that. I think that the elements that they have just need to perform better when it comes to September. It's an important month, but it's also only a month. I don't know if there's any one secret move that unlocks a run for them. Maybe I'm wrong. Curious your thoughts.
Yeah, no, you got to hit. They've got to hit, and the guys who they've counted on have got to hit. Then it's got to be more than Chapman. He's about the only one right now that looks like if you make a mistake, he can hurt you. So for me, it's getting the hitting going. The bullpen looks good to me, and the Birdsong Harrison thing, they're running in. They're tired, and I think that's the biggest problem. But if they could hit a little bit, it would take the pressure off the pitchers. So for me, it's just getting the offense going if that can happen. So that's right. That's how I would answer it. But hey, we'll see. You did a great job this week. I encourage everyone to read the articles that Shaina wrote this week in the Chronicle. They really broke it down as she did on the show today. So enjoy Saturday, and we'll catch up with you next week.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me, Marty.
Oh, anytime. All right, that is Shaina Rubin. She covers the Giants for the Chronicle. More coming up. Mark Simon, Sports Info Solutions, next, right here on the Sports Leader. Gene Pagano checked in from the Tides up in Bodega Bay, and he said that with fall just around the corner, they're expecting some of the best weather of the year. Down at the Tides Wharf, there's something for everyone, from a great waterside restaurant serving the freshest seafood available to a fish market offering a wide selection of delicacies to take home, as well as a gift shop stocked with a fantastic variety of gifts, souvenirs, and clothing items. How about that? And just across Highway 1, There's the Inn at the Tides with its incredible bay views and the recently reopened Bayview Dining Room and its incredible menu that provide guests with a unique dining experience. Wow. So if you're looking to get away this fall for just a day or perhaps a little longer, remember the Tides Wharf and the Inn at the Tides in scenic Bodega Bay. Fans, Priest Ranch Wines has a great offer happening. They offer 2-bottle, 3-bottle, or 6-bottle gift sets for the wine lover on everyone's list. Whether it's for a birthday, corporate gift, or a holiday celebration, Priest Ranch has the perfect gift. Now, for a limited time, you can use the code MARTY, M-A-R-T-Y, for 10% off of all the gift sets through the end of October. So go to priestranchwines.com to explore this offer. It's absolutely terrific.
Mark Simon. Mark, I love you, man.
Oh, no! That's Jerry Seinfeld says, oh, no. Well, the Mets are doing pretty well. He doesn't have to say, oh, no, too much. They've got the White Sox 31 and 105. So how about that for the Mets today? All right. Mark Simon joins us, of course, from Sports Info Solutions. Mark A. Simon says on Twitter. And, Mark, how are you? How have you been?
Good, top of the muffin to you, as Seinfeld might say.
Oh, no! Let me tell you. Hey, come on, let's start with the Mets a little bit. 31 and 105 for the White Sox. Quintana today against Davis, who's not terrible for the White Sox. But do you think the White Sox will go past the 120 of the 1962 Mets?
It's really looking like it, because these last 40-odd games for them have just been dreadful. They have like 4 wins. The lineup has like 2 guys in it that would make you nervous. The pitching isn't good enough. It's kind of gross. It really is just unfortunate that their season went so far down like this. I think, if I was going to say a number of wins, I think they'd be in the 36-37.
Yeah, no, I think they're going past 120. And look, the Mets could have lost 122, but 2 games got rained out that they never could make up, and they didn't care at that point. So 120 is the number. And the White Sox at 105, 31 and 105, so 26 to go. All right. Mason Black gets the start today for the Giants. And as I said on the show today, last time he pitched was back in May. Not good. First time through, okay, and then of course it got worse after that, and he really came unglued in that, I think, or the relief appearance in Pittsburgh. What about Mason Black today?
So anytime you can have a good start in the PCL, I think is a good sign, because those are very few and far between. And his last time out in the PCL, 5 2/3. 1 run allowed, 1 hit allowed against Tacoma, which is the 3rd best offensive team in that league. So that's good. 4-seamer was effective. The sinker, the slider, the changeup were all good. The sweeper was the only pitch that he allowed a hit on, but it also got him a whole bunch of outs too. He seemed right that day. And I think at this point, with the injuries that you've got, you got to give him a shot, right? You got to see what he's got.
Yeah, it's better than a bullpen game. You don't want to eat up the bullpen again. These guys have been, they're all at the top 3 or 4 in the league in appearances. Right. So you got to stop that. But when Mason Black gets hit, what happens to him? Well, what goes wrong? And as I said, that I remember the Pittsburgh appearance was not good, and he was in Colorado before that, which is trouble. But I remember the ball was flat a lot.
Yeah, see, that's where you and Mike Kruko are smarter than Mark Simon is. His problem pitches have been his fastballs against the 4-seam. His 4-seam's gotten hit. His sinker's gotten hit. I don't know that I have much more than that. His slider doesn't move very much horizontally. It's straight down-breaking pitch. He doesn't necessarily show it very often, but he's mostly fastball. And if he's got no he's got the sweeper. But if he's got no fastball, he seems to run into trouble. I mean, he throws 92, so that's ripe to get hit pretty good.
Okay, so he's got to really. So I'm going to look for spotting the fastball today for him. Okay, that's what I'm going to look at. All right, Edward Cabrera, and I've seen him. He's a big, tall kid. He's 26 years old or so, out of the Dominican Republic. But the Giants saw him back in Miami, and let me tell you, he stuck it to him. 6 innings, struck out 10. Now, when you strike out 10 Giants, it's kind of par for the course. It means you're okay. But, he's one of those guys. If he's got it, he's got it. If he doesn't, he doesn't. But if he has it and doesn't go 9, it's real trouble because then you get in the Marlin bullpen.
Yes, I actually am surprised that he's not a closer by now because he throws 96 as a starter, which means you'd probably see him throw 98, 99 as a closer. And first time through the order, he just crushes. Opponents hitting 151, OPS near 500. Then you go the other times through the order, and it's like 300 and 1,000. And I'm a little surprised that he starts. But a couple of things with him. Look for the slider, which he had stopped throwing for about a month. He started throwing it again 2 starts ago. It was effective the last time out. Pairs it with his curveball. His changeup has typically been his best pitch. So he's got 3 off-speed pitches that could work. The fastball gets creamed, kind of like Mason Black. But those other pitches can be pretty nasty and can, I think, cause a lot of trouble. They caused a lot of trouble for the Rockies hitters last time out.
Well, 14 home runs in 70 innings.
Yep.
So how about that? That's a pretty big number.
Yeah, I would. He is there. This could be a 8-6 game tonight if the Giants bats have anything in them.
Yeah, well, that's always a question. They did change the lineup today. Schmidt's out, Wisely's in, McRae is out, Encarnacion is in there today. So, Canna is in there for Wade today. It's interesting because this is a righty, and they put in actually 2 right-handed hitters, Encarnacion and Canna. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that's interesting. I think the Canna aspect of that is that if you look at the Giants in August, their strikeout to walk for their hitters is 4-1, and that, quite frankly, that's terrible. Like that's problematic. I think they have something like 20 fewer walks than they had last month and 25 more strikeouts. You're not going to win like that. Like that's I can diagnose the problem. That's the problem for the Giants lineup. They need to figure out a way to strike out less and figure out a way to walk more. It's that simple. Yeah.
No, look, Conforto, bases loaded last night and then one out, and they blew him away. Bowman just knocked him out, and then they brought in Soriano, who did the one thing that Chapman loves, and that's a nice slider over the plate, and he didn't miss it. Boy, you throw Chapman high heat, it's trouble. And I was saying about Chapman, when he gets his pitch, he doesn't miss it. He does some damage.
It is crazy how he can just he can look like the best hitter in baseball for 6 weeks to 2 months, and then when he's off, he's really off, and he looks like there are times where he's basically an automatic out. It has been one of the most inconsistent seasons that I think the Giants have had in a long time. But right now, the wave seems to be riding up for him, and it's funny. Like last year, if you remember, he was terrible from May on. This year, his season really needed to start in mid-May because that's when he really started to get going.
Yeah, and he's the one guy who can do damage now. He gets his pitch, he's not missing it. Blake Snell, I think he's the best pitcher in baseball right now. The curveball against lefties, lefties are hitting 60 against him or something ridiculous. And Jim Wolf was his best friend last night, I'll tell you that, the umpire.
Yeah, Blake Snell is shredding lineups, and this is 2 months in a row now that he's just been a NL Pitcher of the Month candidate. This month, he's blowing guys away up. He's blowing guys away inside. He has been largely untouchable other than a couple of at-bats. It's Lincecum. I don't know. He doesn't go deep into games like Juan Marichal, but it's Lincecum. It's really, really impressive, and he's gonna make the money. I think off of the way that his season has ended.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that. How do you feel about that? Would you invest in him? He's a little bit strange, a little different. He's a lefty, we know that. But he is a little bit different. And, the spring training thing was a mess, and who knows what his market is going to be this year. But would you invest in him?
So this is such a super fascinating question, because if you asked me this last year, if I would have given him 4 years, I would have said definitely not. But if you asked me last year if I would have given him 1 year and a really large number, I would have said absolutely, I'll take the shot. I just think that a guy that throws that many curveballs and that throws that hard, 98 consistently when he dials it up, and has a nasty slider, I just feel like there's something coming for him. Maybe it's a year or two that would make me think that he's going to miss some time. But again, that's I don't have anything scientific with that. I would be hesitant to give him a particularly long deal, but after seeing this year, I would expect that someone will give it a shot.
Yeah, he's got a good breaking pitch, and that is good against righties and lefties. And I'm going to go back, probably you don't remember him, but Frank Tanana was a lefty, and he lost the fastball. And then he reinvented himself because he had a great breaking ball. And this reminds me of the old Frank Tanana, at least when he was good. So throw that.
I know Frank Tanana of the 85, 86, 87 like Tigers when he had like completely remade himself as a pitcher. One of the neater stories in baseball, that he went from being one end to the other end completely.
Yeah, he went from Blake Snell into something else. That's why I said Snell could probably do that because the curveball is so good. What about Ryan Walker? How about what he's doing? I mean, this guy looks like he's throwing 200 miles an hour.
So I think he's got to win reliever of the month. He hasn't given up a run. He hasn't given up an extra base hit. Against the slider this month, opponents are 2 for 31, and he throws it for a strike 70% of the time. If you throw a slider for a strike 60% of the time, you're doing pretty well. He's at 70. And he is – it's amazing how Dotel sell, and they plug this guy right in. Some guys have it. Some guys have that mentality to be a dominant closer, and it looks like he's got it. And you might get 2-3 years out of this. Now, the one thing that I'm wary of, though, God, he's pitched so much. Like he's gonna be one of these throwback 1980s kind of guys who threw 90 to 100 innings in relief. I hope that he has the stamina and the ability to get through it over not just this year, but the years thereafter.
It's quite a 1-2 punch when you have Duvall ready. You got Rogers, of course, but you have Duvall ready if you need him, and then Walker behind him. That's not a bit. That's the reverse of what they used to do, but I like it.
It can be. And can I just say, this team is so, I don't know if I'm speaking for a lot of people that watch them every day. This team is so maddening because they have a couple of days where they look great, and then they have a couple of days where they look terrible, and they can never get, over that hump, essentially what the Mets are trying to do. They just live in this 1 game under, 2 games over zone that you just this is a season that you wish that there could have been more of, but things like Dotel falling off, those burn you at the end of the year when you've lost some wins as a result.
Well, they're inconsistent.
And you get back with Walker.
Yeah. They're inconsistent offensively. They'll hit. Some guys will hit, then some guys disappear for a while. And the other thing is the strikeouts. And I think the strikeouts, when you put the ball in play, things can happen. The Brewers do it. The Brewers put the ball in play, and they force you to do things. They did a double steal on the Giants this week. The Brewers are better than I thought in watching them. I'll tell you who's going to be a star is this Churio.
Yes. Yeah, boy, that was some home run. It was funny because I guess Dave and Hunter couldn't tell where it landed. And we were and I was even, because I didn't see the part where they showed that it hit the scoreboard. I'm like, why is this 450 or whatever they called it distance-wise? And then, watching it a few times, it's like, oh, shoot, that guy really crushed the heck out of the ball. One other thing with him that's interesting is he's decent defensively, too. And he can play right and he can play left. He can play both corners and play them both well. You're right. That guy's going to be a star.
Yeah, he's good. And Perkins is some center fielder. And, he's Robb's 7 home runs this year.
Yeah, so it's 4. The record within So Sports Info Solutions, the company that I work for, has kept track of every home run robbery since 2004. Now, it's a judgment call. We're guessing as to whether the ball would have been over the fence or not, but I think our people are pretty good guessers. The record is 5. He's at 4 right now. And his last two are very similar. Like the one that he made against the Giants is fantastic. This was a great week, by the way, for home run robberies. Did you see the Jankowski one and the Aaron Judge one? Those were amazing.
Yep.
So,
yeah.
Anyway,
it's
4's the record, or 5's the record.
Well, I said he has 7, so it seems like he has more.
he broke the record. It's Kyle Tucker, Carlos Gomez, and Lorenzo Cain each had 5 in a season in the 21 years that we've been tracking.
The Brewers. Let me tell you something. The Brewers, this Aaron Ashby, did you see him? I don't know if you saw him, but his shoulder is fine. He pitched great in that one relief appearance against the Giants. You know, the Brewers may be dangerous in this thing.
Yeah, I'm just a little skeptical of the starting pitching, and I think that in 3 games they could get beat up pretty well, even with Peralta and Myers. I'm just going up against some of the better teams. Like I don't feel like they match up with the Phillies particularly well.
No, the Phillies have the 2 horses and Wheeler and Nola, because the other 2 lefties are not doing that well now. If I had to pick a winner for the pennant, I can't do it right now. I mean that.
It's funny. I was looking at the World Series odds, and right now the World Series playoff odds on Fangraphs list the Yankees as the most likely team to win the World Series, and I'm like, really? But it occurs to me, I don't feel particularly confident in any of the top 4. If I was going to take a guess right now, I would say the Phillies, but I don't feel that strongly in their favor at this point. And I do think it's ripe to be gotten for a team that's at the bottom seed-wise. Yeah,
absolutely. And that's what September's all about here, to see how this shakes out. Well, great news for the Dusty Baker family. How about that? His kid is getting called up. Darren Baker is getting called up for Washington. How about that?
So I do have a tidbit on this that I actually think is worth bringing up. We track the stat, and you hear it sometimes. They've talked about it on the broadcast, defensive runs saved, which tells you how effective a guy is defensively. We track it in the major leagues, but we also track it in the minor leagues. And right now, you know who's tied for first among second basemen in the minor leagues in defensive runs saved? Darren Baker.
Wow. Yeah, and he could steal a bag. Yeah, he could steal a bag too. He's like 38 out of 42 or something like that.
Yep. You knew that he was going to be a smart player and a player who was fundamentally sound and who could do things like steal a base, field his position. You knew that you would have known that at like 8 years old probably. Yeah,
sweet. Well, JT Snow saved him. And we know that in the World Series, so it goes back to that. All right, boy, good stuff, all good stuff. Mason Black and Cabrera, we got a lot to look at today. And well, who's the umpire today, by the way?
Oh, geez, you're really going to ask me that. It's Alan Porter, who typically in the past has had a small strike zone, but less so this season. He has been more, non-favoring. And look out for the low pitch, bottom of the zone. Right on the edge. He likes to call that a strike.
Okay. All right. Well, Jim Wolf, I'll tell you that. His low strike wasn't there, but on either side of the plate, forget it.
He spread the plate out.
Holy cow. All right. Have a good Saturday. I look forward to talking to you again next week. Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Marty. See you.
All right. Be well. There's Mark Simon, Sports Info Solutions. That's good baseball. All right. Bruce Jenkins next, right here on the Sports Leader. It's been a pleasure working with Rick Robin this year. Rick Robin, R-O-B-B-E-N, NapaConstruction.com. Rick, the last time you were on with us, you told us about kitchen and bath remodeling, but there's a lot more going on up in your area.
Yes, there is. ADUs, auxiliary dwelling units, which are known as dwelling units. We can do your existing garage, attached garage, even building a new unit in the back. And so what we do is come out, bring an architect out there. Such a great thing. No sewer hookup fees, no water hookup fees. So that's what we do.
Rick, how does one start the process with you? How does one get in touch with you?
Oh, you call Tammy, 707-332-7575, 7 days a week.
Rick Robin, ConstructionNapa.com. Rick, the thing I like about this, no problem for me. You come out with the plans, the permits, everything is in-house, no fees, and you get a new unit that you can rent out and get money back on your investment right away. I like it, Rick.
Thanks, Marty. Love talking to you.
Rick Robin, ConstructionNapa.com. Everyone likes a party, but everyone loves a party at Original Joe's. With 3 private dining rooms, it's the perfect spot to hold your next big event. From christenings to corporate gatherings, we'll make your next party San Francisco special. Original Joe's, see you at the counter.
Look through the window of the Original Joe's on North Beach and you'll see 2 guys at the counter talking ball. Time for you to listen in to their conversation. Marty Laurie and the SF Chronicles' Bruce Jenkins are looking through the window of baseball. Sponsored by Original Joe's of North Beach and Westlake on KNBR 104.5 and 680, the sports leader.
All right, great to have you back with us as we get ready for baseball. Game 2 between the Giants and the Marlins on Labor Day weekend, one of those markers of a baseball season. And that's it. One more month to go, and it starts tomorrow. The Cubs did win today, 5-3 over Washington. And the Cubs have a little bit of a bullpen going, and got it done today, 5-3. And the Padres got their 61st loss today, which ties them with Atlanta in the loss column. They got walloped by Tampa Bay today. So those are a couple of the scores right now. Bruce Jenkins joins us. Bruce, how are you on this Saturday?
Good, Marty. Very good. How are you?
Good. Are you ready for Cal football?
Yeah, you know, I'm taping like 10 games today, but Cal is the one game. It's on something called ACC Plus, and I've checked around. You have to call it up through streaming, and I'm sorry, I don't do that. Not on Saturday. I got in front of the TV. I got a big screen. I'm not peering into my phone or a computer, so I'm taping all the news shows tonight, hoping to get some good Cal highlights.
Okay, all right. It's different. Let me tell you, without the Pac-10 around, or whatever you want to call it.
It's totally absurd. It's so ridiculous.
It is.
But I mean, college football's still great.
Yeah, I know. I'm taping the Florida game, so don't tell me. I'm afraid.
Okay.
Okay. Miami's probably killing them, but it's the Gators. All right.
Yeah, they got Cam Ward now at quarterback.
Yeah, and he's very calm.
Yeah.
Very calm. I noticed that about him. All right. The Milwaukee Brewers took 2 or 3 from the Giants. The Giants won the first one 5-4. Yastrzemski had the big home run off of Payamps. And then the Brewers kind of pulled it together at the end. What did you think? It's our first real look at the Brewers.
Well, they're just their offense is so superior to the Giants. It's almost comical. I mean, whether you're talking about Garrett Mitchell and Rhys Hoskins and Jackson Churio's having a really good year. Bryce Terang runs wild. They swept the Reds yesterday. Adames and Contreras each they homered in each game. The two of them homered in each game. They're just raking, Marty. They're not the Giants is what they are. And they got a lot of injuries to the staff, but they close it out with Devin Williams. And so far, they've got a big lead, but they hit. My, do they hit.
Yeah, they get it done. And the thing that impressed me was Aaron Ashby that they brought in on Thursday. To close out the game, just a couple of innings, but boy, was he sharp! And this is Alan Ashby, Andy Ashby's nephew, the pitcher, Andy Ashby, and
I mean,
he's
to
had a
have
shoulder
that guy ahead of Williams is a heck of a thing. You can do a lot with a great bullpen and the hitting that they have. Yeah,
the Brewers could be trouble. They could be trouble, but Jackson Churio is the real deal, Bruce. That for me was the series to watch him play.
Well, he really is. It looked like he got hurt significantly yesterday, but he was sprinting back to the outfield before you knew it. I mean that Rookie of the Year race. We love Fitzgerald, and he's definitely in it. But I mean, it's between Skeens and Merrill and Imanaga and Churio. I think all 4 of those guys are ahead of Fitzgerald right now. But this kid was highly touted. They signed him to like a 38-year contract, like right away, and. But he's coming through. One thing that struck me in the Milwaukee series was Hunter Birdsong. It's so frustrating to watch this guy because he comes out and throws just unhittable changeups. Like, think of all the great changeups you've ever seen. This is among them. And the great curveball and his stuff is there, and all of a sudden the fastball command isn't there. The walks happen, and next thing you know, he's out of the game in the 4th inning, and here comes Jelly, and who knows what happens after that. But it's been tough. They have so much faith in him, and they should. He's got some presence and great stuff, but the command seems to leave him so fast that they figure they can't leave him in there that long, especially against the Brewers.
I know, but here's the point. He's 22 now, 23. I think his birthday was yesterday. And he's been in A-ball, a little bit of double A-ball, and now he's in the big leagues. And, the arm, and Woda said this to me, Woe said it when Birdsong first got to Sacramento. I said, what about him? He said, it is a major league arm. That's
no
exactly
doubt.
what Woe
Absolutely.
said. But
I mean,
he's
the
still a
fastball
kid.
He is a kid. Paul Skeens is a kid. But, I mean, sometimes kids don't need much, but it's more common to see a big, learning curve coming in. And they were so excited about his stuff that they were talking about having one of the better rotations with him being part of it. And I think you can forecast that. But the way it looks right now, he just needs a little more time. And with that kind of stuff, and he's a good kid, and I think there's a good future for him.
Oh, he's big league arm. Big league, just needs experience. And once he gets it, it's a whole new ball game for him and Harrison, for the both of them.
Yeah, well, I like Harrison too, for sure.
Yeah, no, they're gonna be stars. Snell was just amazing last night. Jim Wolf had the wide strike zone, the Eric Gregg strike zone. But look, Snell is, I brought this up to Mark Simon. He's a young Frank Tanana. I mean, he blazes that fastball in there, and then he just paralyzes you with the curve.
Yeah, to me, he's earned a wide strike zone because his stuff is that good. It's mind-blowing. The curveball is one of the best I think we've seen in recent years. And it's not a looper like Zito or Kershaw.
Yeah.
It's a blazer,
Yeah.
and the fastball is great. He mixes it up. I mean, they did so much to win that game with, Snell, and then Walker is great at the end. But, when you only get one hit of significance, I mean, thank goodness Chapman, a 2-strike count, he on a slider, that's a big hit. That's the whole thing. That was their whole offense, and it got him a win, but it's hardly a blueprint on how to do it.
No, and John Shea, I'm sure you saw his column today.
Yeah.
He wrote about what can Farhan do. The plan didn't work, and as I said, I don't condemn him for the plan. He tried. And he went after the big guys and didn't get them, and then that crazy market where people were left in spring training, he jumped on it, but it just didn't work out. But what can you really do now? What's his next step at this point?
Well, if he has to know what's going to happen with the ridiculous opt-outs, Chapman, I think, is the main guy now because he's a guy that they think they can sign. And is having an unbelievable year defensively, and he's been hitting. He's a guy they really have to sign, Marty, I think, because Snell and Robbie Ray could opt out. Robbie Ray doesn't have many credentials to get a big contract, and maybe he'll be back. But it's just all the uncertainty about the rotation. But I think, for right now, I'd really like to see Luciano. There's all this talk about, well, he's going to get at bats here and this and that. It hasn't happened. But, with Estrada being sent down and if you keep Fitzgerald at short, let's see Luciano play every day the rest of the season at second base. I mean, why not? They're not going to win the friggin' World Series. Let's see that. I really like Schmidt, but I don't know where he would fit in right now because, they're going to look at Fitzgerald at short, obviously, as they should. I'm not sure about Fitzgerald's pure instincts at shortstop. I think I'd rather see him in the outfield, but that's a whole different deal. I like the idea of getting Kim from San Diego. That's very intriguing to me because you need a shortstop. You need a Crawford. You don't need an Ahmed. You don't really need a Fitzgerald who made a bad mistake in a rundown the other night has made other mistakes. You need a rock solid shortstop who can hit. If you want to make a dent, they're the fourth best team in the division, and getting past just into third is hard to even envision right now. But the bottom line on Farhan is that the results haven't changed. There's a lot of promise. There's this and that, and Jung-Hoo Lee and McRae and whatever, and Harrison, but the results are exactly the same. They're a 500 team. They've done nothing, and that doesn't look good on the resume.
No, I'm with you on Kim. If they can figure that out, and for me, Fitzgerald is a perfect second baseman, outfielder, and he could switch. He's the Chris Taylor type. I think he'd be really, really good at that. Well, Lamont Wade is not in the lineup tonight. They've got Canna, a right-hander, against Cabrera, who's a right-handed pitcher. And usually Melvin is tied into the platooning, I'm sure, with all the analytics. But Canna's in there today. Encarnacion is in there today. No McRae today. And no Schmidt today. Wisely's in there, which he's a lefty at least against Cabrera. So I think they're trying to do something different here with 1 month to go.
Yeah, well, McRae, we love his athleticism and his power and his speed, but he's also struck out twice in each of the last 4 games. He's just whiffing and whiffing and whiffing, so that's totally understandable. Wade, we've talked about this. I think you mentioned a couple of weeks ago that something's up with him. He's not right. He hasn't really produced all season. He's had sort of a Soler-like season, except he had a good on-base percentage, but he hasn't done what you expect him to do. So for him to sit, that's no shock whatsoever. See how Canada does, but they're just the thing is gone. The horse, all the horses are out of all the barns, and whatever they dick around with, to me. The younger they get, the better. And choosing between Wade and Canna, that's nothing to me. Yeah.
Wade to me is hurt. He can't run. I mean, he would have had a triple was it last night? He just blasted into triples alley and barely got to second. So there's got to be something with his legs. because he's chasing pitches all over the place. He's not comfortable for some reason. So I'm glad he's not in there today, and we'll see what Canna can do. The Marlins, they're doing it. They traded the whole bullpen, so that's what you got last night is a guy who threw 60 pitches, whatever. Bauman, they never took him out. But they traded everybody. They're all over the league in San Diego and Arizona. They've been moved, but they got 20 kids. And they have the two, this Norby and Stowers, who's from Stanford, from the Orioles. So those two kids can play. I think the Marlins are in the right direction.
Yeah, it's just their history. They rise. They've actually risen to the top to win the whole thing a couple of times, and they tear it up. The next year comes around, you have no idea who's playing for them, but geez, some of these guys look good, and Kim Eng's down there, Gabe Kapler's down there, and they've got some pretty good baseball people in the operation. They never seem to be horrible. They traded Chisholm too, and he's been great for the Yankees because he's coming back from injury. So it's pretty wild. But and like I say, last night the kid pitched great. I was surprised the Giants broke through against the reliever there in the ninth. That guy's been unhittable. But they're very tough, and they're going to be tough on whoever they play the rest of the way.
Yeah. Yep. What did you think of Kershaw? And he's got a toe injury. He went on the IL today. Bruce, this may be the end of Clayton Kershaw. Yeah,
it's the last body part that wasn't hurting him is the toe.
Come on.
Finally, the toe went. Their rotation is really a shambles. They're the Dodgers, and their lineup is so good. Ohtani and Freeman and Betts are otherworldly kind of guys. Will Smith, they've got an awful lot going for them, but they're not certain Glasnow's even going to pitch the rest of the season. That's got to go for Kershaw as well. Yamamoto hasn't pitched since the middle of June. Walker Buehler's going, hey, forget about what money I can make. I'm trying to get people out up here, and I'm not doing it. Bobby Miller, it's Flaherty and Stone, and who knows? It's very fragile, and the bullpen can be good, but it can also be horrible. I mean, they had a big lead in Arizona. They almost blew the whole thing. And then, guys like Ohtani and Freeman and Will Smith are going to bail them out. And they're going to keep bailing them out. But in the postseason, I think, unless they get some miraculous recoveries from the real studs like Buehler and Kershaw, and Yamamoto, they're going to get dusted. The pitching is going to get raked.
Yep, I'm with you on that. I'm absolutely with you on that. San Diego, is coming back to the pack a little bit, and so is Arizona. Look, they weren't going to play 750 ball, for 2 months. It just is not going to happen. So it's getting a little bit tighter. And I'm going to give the Giants to the end of the Arizona series until there's about 21 to go, and see where they're at that point. Who knows? Maybe the Phillies with Wheeler and Nola will do some more damage to the Braves, and maybe the Giants can get something done against Arizona. Arizona's vulnerable to lefties, and they do have Harrison and Snell going in that series.
Yeah, I expect the Giants to play them tough. The Giants' problem is that the Braves is obviously the big target, but they're 3.5 behind the Mets.
Yeah.
The Cubs are two games ahead of them, and the Cardinals are even with them. They got
Cubs
4 teams to worry about.
Yeah, the Cubs won already.
Whatever they do, it's not. There's no way they get through all of that. And the Cubs, and all 4 of those teams are feeling good about themselves right now and looking like it on the field.
Yeah, the Cubs scored 80 runs in 8 games, and the last time they did that was 1929. And Hack Wilson.
It sounds like the A's. They've hit 15 homers in the last 4 games, Marty.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of it's amazing what the A's are doing, really, from a power standpoint. And the contrast between the two teams, you got one team that's heading to the boonies in Sacramento, and you can't get them out. And the Giants have all the history and the tradition and the ballpark, and they're struggling. So it's been an interesting way to look at them as the thing fades out as the rivalry dies.
Well, I'm going to, as I say, I'm not going to quit yet. I'm not going to quit yet. I'm still.
Well, no, the standings tell you not to. I agree with that.
I'm still 5 or 6. I'm still 5 or 6 games away from.
Yeah.
I know John Shea threw in the towel today, but I'm still maybe 5 or 6 games away from that. So we'll see. My guy, Pasquantino.
Bruce, brutal.
He broke his thumb. He's out 6 or 8 weeks. It's going to kill Kansas City.
That's just so brutal. The guy's got 97 RBIs.
I know.
He's right up there. I mean, I think he I forget where he ranks, but he's there's Judge and Ramirez and Naylor, but he's got 97. All of a sudden, there's a ball hit back to Ursig. He sticks out a bare hand, and he's hurt because of that. He makes a throw that's super tough for Pasquantino to catch while avoiding a guy bearing down on him. There's a collision. He breaks his hand, and Ursig's a big part of their thing too. He might be out a while. So that's just, gosh, that was so unfortunate because we've talked about Kansas City and how fun they are, and of course they're still in it. I mean they're 2.5 behind Cleveland, so they can recover. But he's been a big guy for them.
Yeah. Boy, how do you like the no-hit stuff? This Framber Valdez had 7 innings. They took him out, because of the pitch count thing. They had Arrighetti, I think, almost had a no-hitter the other day for Houston. Bowden Francis went 8 2/3 before giving up a home run. Then he went 7 no-hit innings in his next start, I think. And that's Toronto, and no one knows him from Adam because he's nowhere.
Yeah, Arrighetti, who is this guy?
He's good,
but it's symbolic of how tough it is to hit these days, which we've talked a lot about on the show. It's so tough to hit. Strikeouts are obviously they're way up. There's so many pitches in a guy's arsenal. A guy comes up, he's got 3 or 4 of those. You've never seen him. Next thing you know, it's the 7th inning. You don't have any hits, and Houston is very lucky to have Hunter Brown and that kid Arrighetti because they lost so many guys in the rotation, Javier and Urquidy and McCullers, and yet they're steaming toward the playoffs. So they to have that good young pitching. We throw Birdsong in there too because he's one of those guys who one of these days he's going to be a guy taking a no into the 6th because he's so tough to hit.
I must tell you, I got a kick out of Altuve. When his career is all said and done, forgetting about the crazy home run, was he wired or not, put that aside. This guy is some player. He is some player.
Yeah, he's such a little guy, but he's got amazing, but not just amazing power, but consistent power.
Wow.
He's just he's hitting his 20 plus homers every year. He's hitting doubles. He's a pure winner. He's just one of those guys. The thing about Houston is that they had the scandal to end them all, but in the meantime, with guys like Correa and Bregman and Altuve, those guys are pure winners. I don't care what they're doing behind the scenes, and he's so important to them. Young guys like Dubon and Pena look up to these guys. And you can't kill Houston. You just can't do it.
No. And Seattle is starting to hit a little bit, believe it or not. Julio Rodriguez, after we buried them last weekend, he actually hit a couple of home runs, and even a Rosarena ran into one by mistake. He even knocked one out. Yeah, it's great baseball. Great baseball. Boy, we got a lot cooking. All right. Today's August 31st. My daughter Bonnie's birthday was yesterday, August 30th.
Oh, happy birthday.
She and Ted Williams share that. But today, 1990, the Griffeys playing the same game. How about when you think about it, father and son in the same outfield for the Seattle Mariners, the Griffeys.
Yeah, that was the first time that ever happened. There had never even been, a father and son combination active anywhere in the majors, let alone one in left and one in center. It's so funny because Ken Griffey was such a budding star at that time. He was just in his second year, I think. And Ken Griffey, this guy was a big part of the Reds in 75 and 76. Yeah. He was the regular right fielder. He played every game with Pete Rose. In the final game of the 76 series, they swept the Yankees. He's hitting second between Rose and Morgan on a team everybody's calling one of the greatest ever. So this is a guy who really had a lot to offer. He was near the end at this time, and he'd voluntarily retired and technically wasn't eligible to join anybody, but the Reds worked out a deal. They knew that he wanted to play with his son, and he did hook up with Seattle. And next thing you know, they're playing next to each other, and the first time they hit back-to-back, they hit back-to-back singles. So this is a beautiful thing. The A's got a little taste of that. Later that September, they're looking at the Griffeys in the same outfield, and Dad hit a 3-run homer off Welch, and Junior got a single, and they did some good damage in the little month that they have. But really cool stuff. And Jim Lefevre managing, I'm sure, is a delightful thing for him with the 40-year-old dad and the 20-year-old kid, and they're both still doing it.
Only baseball.
Yeah,
not going to see. Not seeing. Well, actually, we could see with LeBron James that could happen.
Actually, that is happening. Whether the kid's going to be Ken Griffey, I don't know about that, but it is possible in basketball for sure, and that's a possibility. But this one I love because Ken was a real icon with the Reds, overshadowed by a lot of Hall of Famers. And then Ken Griffey Jr., good grief, he's talked about as one of the all-time greats. So a powerful standard.
All right, one last quick one. Frank Robinson, it's his birthday today. He was one of my favorite players ever.
Well, without a question. I saw a lot of him, being a National League fan in Southern California, and the Reds would come in. He's got the red sleeves, and he goes to the American. He wins a Triple Crown, and he goes to the American League. He does it again. He had a season. They're talking about Aaron Judge having one of the great right-handed seasons ever. We can talk about this at some point, and Lord knows there's a lot of candidates. But look up Frank Robinson in 1962, just for a name that you'd like to have in there. The season that he had, as well as he made like 2 errors, maybe playing 160 games, something like that. It's this amazing season. And he was one of the toughest guys who ever lived. An unbelievably good base runner, great World Series player. Widely respected, home runs, everything you'd want. He was a good outfielder. If you're going up against Mays and Clemente and Aaron, you're going to have a tough time being linked with them in terms of all-around play. But geez, he was a badass son of a gun.
Oh, I loved him. I loved him as a player, and he was fun as a manager. And I got to know him later on, and Frank Robinson was one of my favorites of all time, and he decked Eddie Matthews. How about that?
Yeah. You didn't give him any grief, or Eddie Matthews. That's a heck of a fight. If that happened in a bar, there wouldn't be any furniture left.
No.
But goodness. Frank, you're right. But he was not a fun manager right off the bat because he would test you and try to make you look bad with a question that he didn't like and be super gruff. But after you got past a certain barrier, and you could ask him anything. You could talk to him about anything, and the sessions were really good. If you get 3 or 4, good writers in there, the sessions were great when he was with the Giants. So I always cherished being able to be part of that.
Yeah, and before he passed away, the Giants brought him back. I remember we had a big news conference with him, and I got to talk to him afterwards, and that's still one of my favorites. Today, 19th. I think I forgot when he was born, but it is on today's date. This is his birthday. All right. Talk to you tomorrow morning. Thanks, Bruce.
Sounds good, Marty. Talk to you then.
All right, a pleasure. Okay, that is Bruce Jenkins. Next up, the Cubs won today. Sarah Sanchez, Bleed Cubby Blue. She's terrific. She's coming up next right here in the Sports Leader.
Talking baseball with Marty Lurie on KNBR 104.5 and 680, the Sports Leader.
Our standings update is sponsored by the Alameda County Probation Department. Visit joinacpd.org today for a career that matters, and it really does. Hey, let's look at the West. The Dodgers get a win last night, 10-9 over Arizona, so they push Arizona 5 back now. San Diego beat Tampa Bay, so they are now 5 back as well. And the Giants, with their win last night, they hold their position, but unfortunately 13.5 behind the Dodgers. Now, the wild card is still a story for me. Arizona, San Diego have the 4 and 5 spot. Atlanta, with 61 losses, has the 3rd spot. Now, the loss column, as I've said a million times, is the important thing. So Atlanta, 61 losses. The Mets have 64. They're 3 back of Atlanta. The Cubs have 66. They're 5 back. And the Giants have 68. They are 6.5 back. But Atlanta has that tiebreaker. So really the Giants are 8 back in that loss column right now. But with 26 games to go for the Giants and 27 to go for Atlanta, You win 4 or 5 in a row, and Atlanta loses 4 or 5 in a row, and things can change dramatically. So I'm not giving up yet. I know a lot of people have written it off, but I think the Giants are still in there. St. Louis with a win today over the Yankees stays at 68 losses, so the Giants need a win today to keep a half a game ahead of the St. Louis Cardinals.
KNBR, the sports leader. Giants fans, there's no better way to set the game day table than talking baseball with Marty Laurie. Marty keeps rolling on KNBR, the sports leader.
All right, great to have you back with us, as we always enjoy having Sarah Sanchez on the show today. And I know it's a big day for her, a lot going on. Sarah, how are you? It is Bleed Cubby Blue, and the big W is flying today.
Yes, it is. No curly W's today. We took that W back from the Washington Nationals. It's great, Marty. How are you? Thanks for having me back.
No, we're doing fine, and we love having you on. And, you know, Joe Sheehan is on with us quite a bit, and he's been all over the Cubs all year long, says don't give up on them. And the Cubs are ahead of the Giants, and the Cubs are playing great baseball. They've scored 80 runs in 8 games. Going into today, you have to go back to, 1961 and Billy Williams and the great Ernie Banks for that. How do you explain this resurgence of the Cubs?
Do you want the actual explanation or the superstitious one? And Joe is great, by the way, a friend of mine from the Tout Wars world. So shout out to Joe Sheehan. He's the best.
All right. You give it either way you'd like it, please. Explain how this happened.
So 2 things are going on. The non-superstitious version is that Miguel Amaya and Pete Crow Armstrong are absolutely raking right now, and the bottom of the Cubs lineup has been kind of unbelievable. I mean, even Christian Bethancourt, who is the latest second catcher that they picked up off the waiver wire, has been totally and completely raking recently. And so the back end of the Cubs lineup has been doing a ton of damage since July 7th for batters who have had at least 20 plate appearances. Christian Bethancourt has put up a WRC plus of 264. Miguel Amaya is at 160. Pete Crow Armstrong is 133. I mean, these guys are absolutely doing it every single day. But if you're a superstitious type, about a week and a half ago, Craig Counsell was gifted a Taylor Swift candle. And the Cubs have been lighting that candle in the clubhouse before every game. And I think they've only lost 1 game in the Taylor Swift Cubs era. So I'm here for it, and it's great.
All right. At least it's not the sausage, the Twins. They used to carry that around on the road with them. All right. This Taylor Swift. All right, Taylor Swift candle. All right. But, look, it takes pitching to win in baseball. I don't care who you are. And all of a sudden, the Lopez kid from the Mets who got, released by the Mets is pitching great, and they actually can close some games now. And they got rid of Hector Neris.
They did. I was a little stunned to see that Hector Neris was placed on waiver and ultimately released. But, he's walked as many guys as he struck out this season, and it really just wasn't working in the 9th inning for them. Jorge Lopez has been awesome. That was an excellent pickup by them. They've had a couple of other guys really step up, too. This kid, Porter Hodge, who's made his MLB debut this year and just closed out yet another game for the Cubs. He's been spectacular. They've had a kind of rotating cast of characters with Tyson Miller and Daniel Palencia. Keegan Thompson closed out a 1-run game yesterday. So it's been really nice to see them solidify the bullpen. And the starting pitching, as you and I have talked about before, has been lights out pretty much all year. You could do a lot worse than a starting 3 of Justin Steele, Shota Imanaga, and Jamison Taillon with Javier Assad waiting in the wings.
Boy, and they're doing it. The Cubs now, of course, they win today, and we'll see what happens with the Braves. But 61 losses for the Braves and 66 for the Cubs, and we still have 24, 25 games to go, so still a lot of action for the Cubs. So glad for you. Now, we love following you on Twitter. You had one of the great tweets of all time today, and I'm going to let you explain it. This is Sarah Sanchez, BCB_Sarah, SARA, and this was about 14 minutes ago, and I'm looking at it, and I'll read the first part. It's multi-layered here. Picked up 20 pounds of fresh roasted Hatch green chili that are bagged and in my freezer now. That's part of your day today. These are all good things, so go ahead.
Oh, well, I mean, my family is from New Mexico. They've been living there for 500 years, and Hatch green chili is God-tier food. One of the greatest joys of my life, having moved away from the West Coast, or from, I should say, the Mountain West. I grew up in Utah, and my family's from Arizona and New Mexico, but I moved away from there, probably in the mid-2000s now, and I didn't have access to freshly roasted Hatch green chili for a long time. So in Chicago, there's one day a year where you can get fresh roasted Hatch green chili at a Jewel up about 2 miles from here, and I go every year. I get a whole case of it, and then I bag little baggies of it for the year. And so now I have 20 pounds of Hatch green chili in my fridge.
I love it. It's like me with nectarines. Okay. All right. Part 2 is Cubs get a W. So you got that checked off. So we got that. Cubs win today. Then how about number 3, though? How about that?
Let's see. I think number 3 is probably the Notre Dame is about to start playing,
Yes.
and I have that game paused at the moment, so I have no idea what is happening in that game. I wanted to make sure I could focus on our conversation.
All right. Well, I've taped the Florida game. I'm afraid to look at it, but that's where I went. So, all right, Notre Dame football, you got that, and of course, talking us in baseball, we got that, and now the last one is a big deal today. What's your last one?
Oh, I'm trying to remember what the last thing I put
Fantasy
on that.
football.
Oh, right. My auction draft is at 8 o'clock tonight, and it's the home league. So these are my friends that I have been playing fantasy football with for a while now. We have an auction league that also uses IDP. It's a really complicated system. So I won that league a couple of years ago. I was not as good last year, and so I'm hoping I can make a comeback this year.
All right. I love it. I love all these things, and it's fun following you. All right. So the Cubs are back. Who do the Cubs have after Washington? What's the next week look like?
Yeah, they've got a couple of things going on. So the Pittsburgh Pirates are going to come into Wrigley Field, and they actually just saw the Pirates. It's going to be a lot of the same matchups. They're going to get to see Jared Jones again. They're going to get to see Paul Skeens again, who I'm sure you've been following this kid. He is unbelievable this season. And then right after that, it is the New York Yankees coming to town. And
Wow.
get this, Anthony Rizzo is going to make his first return to Wrigley Field since he was traded to the Yankees in 2021.
Well, big week. All right, big week for the Cubs. They score like crazy, and they're winning. And anytime the Cubs get back into it, it's kind of exciting. So we love having you on, and I appreciate it. I'll let you take Notre Dame off pause. And I've been to Notre Dame. I used to go to the Notre Dame-Miami games. We would fly to Chicago and then drive to South Bend. I've done that 3 or 4 times. So it's exciting.
Oh, the Fighting Irish in person are a thing to behold. I got to see a Notre Dame Boston College game back in the day when I was living out east, and it was truly wonderful.
Yep, we used to stop in Gary, Indiana for Frog's Legs. I remember that was the big deal. All right. That's
Well,
enough
go
of this.
Irish, and good luck to both the Giants and the Cubs down the home stretch.
Why not? The 25 games to go could get exciting. It always does. All right, Sarah, have a great afternoon, and we'll catch up with you in a week or so. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me, Marty.
All right, that is Sarah Sanchez. I have fun with her. A great Cub fan, and she's really good on Twitter. So it's really good to have her on. All right, Christina D Nicola. Coming up next, she covers the Marlins for MLB.com, and she'll give us a good view of what's coming up today for the Giants and the Marlins right after this.
Talking baseball with Marty Lurie on KNBR 104.5 and 680, the sports leader.
Our key player of the week is brought to us by the Key Point Credit Union. Well, for me, it's Mike Yastrzemski. He had the big home run against Seattle, and then he hit the big home run against Milwaukee that gave the Giants the win against Tobias Myers in that game that opened up the series. But you look at what he did against the Marlins, 3 walks, key walk in that 8th inning. He did get a hit with a runner in scoring position. Giants don't do that very often, even though the runner didn't score in the 3rd inning on Friday night's game against the Marlins. But I thought Mike Yastrzemski has had a good week. He really has, and I think he's given the Giants some really tough at-bats. Matt Chapman would be my runner-up. He's got a lot of big hits, and right now, if anyone makes a mistake as a pitcher, he's going to hit it. And he hits it, and he does a lot of damage. So Matt Chapman would be my runner-up there. But for me, our Key Point Credit Union Player of the Week is Mike Yastrzemski.
KNBR, the sports leader.
Vince, I love to talk about my good friends at Georgie Brothers Furniture. They've served the Bay Area for over 90 years. Their talented staff work as a team to help their customers find beautiful pieces of furniture to invest in. The 50,000 square foot showroom, you've heard of it, is full of some of the finest manufacturers of furniture, carpets, and window coverings. Now, one of the most popular furniture lines that I own is Stressless. You know, I love it. They make high-quality, comfortable furniture, including sectionals, sofas, love seats, single reclining chairs, as well as the one I've got, and that is the chair and ottoman. I love it. Starting August 30th and running all the way until October 21st, there's a new Stressless promotion. It's called Fall Savings. During this sale, you'll receive an instant 10% savings on all Stressless furniture. This can easily add up to hundreds of dollars. It's an unbelievable savings on one of the most well-made furniture products today. That's Georgie Brothers Furniture. The showroom is in South San Francisco with free parking. Since 1933, the best source for home furnishings. Visit them at GeorgieBrothers.com. That's GIORGIBROS.com. Remember to tell them Marty sent you.
Prepping you for today's orange and black ball game, we now take you back to Talkin' Baseball with Marty Laurie on KNBR, the sports leader.
Fans, it's great to have you back with us as we get ready for Giants baseball. As the Marlins come in, they are 24-42 on the road. Edward Cabrera on the hill for them today. Pitched well against the Giants in Miami earlier in the year. 6 innings, 5 hits, a run, a walk, and 10 big strikeouts. So we'll see what he brings today. Christina D Nicola joins us. She covers the Marlins for MLB. Christina, how are you?
I'm good, and you?
Oh, we're doing well. You know, the race goes on. A lot of people have given up on it, but not me yet. As I always say, when the team is 6 out with 5 to go, then I'll give up. So I'm always thinking that there's a chance. That's why we love baseball. But let's talk about this Marlin team. We got to see the bullpen last night, and Mike Baumann was in there for like over 40 pitches. Skip Schumacher has trouble with the bullpen after the trades at the trade deadline. What about the bullpen for the Marlins? So we did get a look at it last night.
Right, so you would be correct. It was a seller's market for the Marlins, and they took advantage of the great bullpen they had going in. I mean, they traded A.J. Puck to the Diamondbacks, Oscar Brazelbaum to the Mets. That's just a couple of guys, right? Tanner Scott, obviously, and Brian Hoeing to the Padres, but not only the guys that they dealt, but Andrew Nardi and Anthony Bender, 2 of their late-inning relievers, are currently on the injured list. So that has made things very difficult for Skip Schumacher trying to navigate having late leads. I think Mike Baumann actually tied an AL/NL record. This is his 15 this season.
It's true. He was here for a couple of games. I remember that.
Mm-hmm. But so, yeah, I mean, that's one of the things that we've seen, especially over the last couple of weeks, is they actually have had leads, but trying to hold on to them is tough. I think on Thursday, when the team was in Colorado, Declan Cronin, who started the season as like a middle inning guy, multiple innings, he ate up however many pitches. So I'm assuming he wasn't available yesterday, and so they couldn't like bridge the gap to Calvin Fauché, who kind of became the de facto closer after all this turnover.
Well, the trades were made, and we got to see at least one of the players from the Orioles last night. And I think we'll see Stowers today. Let's talk about the 2 kids who came over from the Orioles, because it gives a little bit of excitement to the ball club.
Oh, absolutely. So the 2 of them, Connor Norby and Kyle Stowers, came over for Trevor Rogers, who honestly was the only healthy starting pitcher for the Marlins this year. You know, I'm sure some combination of maybe Jesus Luzardo or maybe even a Braxton Garrett could have been dealt if they were healthy. But none of them have been, and Trevor was the one that kind of stayed healthy enough, and the Orioles, I guess, were desperate enough to get a starting pitcher who he hasn't, unfortunately. Trevor had, like, the velo and, like, the stuff that he had in his NL Rookie of the Year runner-up campaign. But so, in return, they got Norby, who they've converted to third base, which is kind of a spot that they don't, they have Jake Berger, but they've been kind of having him go between first base, third, and designated hitter since all the trades. And then Stowers, who had more major league time than him and is a little bit older at 26. And he's got off to one of the worst starts, actually, in franchise history. But he's definitely picked up with a modest 5-game hit streak, especially on Thursday in Denver. He had a nice game. So Norby, though, from the beginning, I think I didn't watch last night's game. I'm back in Miami. But he opened his Marlins career with a 10-game hit streak, which was too shy of franchise, the next, two guys in the franchise history. So he's definitely provided pop, provided good at-bats, and very good base running. He knows how to take the extra base. He just seems like a nice, gritty baseball player.
Also, they did an interview last night during the game with Jeff Conine's son, and he's on the team, a left-handed hitter. He's been in the minor leagues a little bit, but they seem to be very excited about him. We'll probably see him in the lineup today. Tell us about Jeff's son.
Yeah, Griffin Conine. He's a little bit on the older side. I believe I think he's 26 now, a Duke University product. He came over in 2020 when the Marlins dealt Jonathan VR to the Blue Jays, and he came over as a player to be named. His issue was always a high strikeout rate. He had power. I think his first year with the Marlins organization, he finished second in home runs in all of minor league baseball. But he made some tweaks to his swing over the offseason. It's paid off, and he finally got a chance. And he had a great series in Colorado. He just missed his first home run, but he became, I think, the first rookie. It would be one of those things where it's 2 extra base hits and an outfield assist in the same game. He was one of only 4 major leaguers since the expansion era to achieve that. So he's been, it's a great story. It's Mr. Marlins kid, and that's, him and then Ryan Weathers and David Weathers are the only other, father-son duo to wear a Marlins uniform.
Oh, it'll be exciting. We should see him in the lineup today. Let's talk about Skip Schumacher a little bit. I know that he's not signed for next year, if I'm not mistaken. What's going to happen with him? Look, last year he got the team in the playoffs, and I know a lot has happened, and we'll talk about the front office in a second. But what's the future? What does it hold for Skip Schumacher, the manager?
This is anybody's guess, but I would put it this way. He will get to be a free agent, kind of like how players are. And we don't know, obviously, yet what different jobs will need to be filled around Major League Baseball, but he is the reigning National League Manager of the Year. He, of course, was brought in by the former general manager, Kim Ng. And so, you can't fault the current, front office if they want to bring in their own people. So that'll be something to monitor, but he should be in demand if he chooses not to come back to Miami, or if Miami doesn't want to bring him back.
Let's talk about the front office a little bit. Kim Ng is gone. Derek Jeter's gone. They brought in the fellow from Tampa Bay to run the organization. What's changed as far as dealing with the Marlins right now? What do you see?
What's changed? Well, it's a completely different look. I guess the first thing that Peter Bendix said during his introductory press conference was, the idea of sustainable winning. He saw it firsthand while he was with Tampa Bay. And this whole idea of, building up through the farm system. They were very fortunate that this was a seller's market this year. And even if they didn't have maybe some of the key pieces they would have dealt, they were able to capitalize and bring in, I think it was 24, 25 players into the system and kind of revamp it. And so the whole idea is hopefully those guys can become part of the future. And we'll see. But, yeah, it's I guess I was on vacation a week and a half ago, and I found out the news that the front office, a bunch of people were let go. Quite a few of them were from the older regimes, whether it was brought in by Derek Jeter or by Kim Ng. So, once again, it kind of goes back to, they want to bring their own people in. But, we'll see what kind of, stance the Bendix era can put on this organization.
Well, Christina D Nicola, let me say it correctly, is with us. She covers the Marlins, does a great job for MLB.com. So what's the public reaction? Look, I grew up in Miami. You know that. I went to law school, University of Miami, undergrad at Florida. I know they're playing today, and we're not going to talk about it. But, I've seen a lot of Marlins baseball going back to the old International League, and I know it's a football town and a basketball town. Is there any foothold at all with the baseball in Miami?
I'll be honest, no. Right now, you got Messi, when he's healthy, is playing here, and that's the MLS, right? You've got the Dolphins are about to start up. The Florida Panthers are the reigning Stanley Cup champions, and the Miami Heat are the Miami Heat, right? They've been the talk of the town since the Wade era, right? And then when it was Wade and Shaq. So, and especially if, depending on how long this rebuild takes, hopefully it's a quick turnaround if they keep their starting pitchers who have, they were hurt, and hopefully ideally next year they'll be healthy, whether it's Sandy Alcantara, Yuri Perez, Luzardo, Braxton Garrett. Who else am I forgetting? There's so many, unfortunately. But, Ryan Weathers, as I mentioned before, and that's an enviable pitching staff. So, with some of these pieces that they brought in that are already getting their chances now, like Connor Norby, there's a couple at AAA that maybe we'll see at the end of the season with roster expansion. If not, definitely for big league invites in spring training, whether it's Davison de los Santos or Agustin Ramirez. But yeah, right now it's as you would expect, right? Like, I'm born and raised in Miami. Unfortunately, fans will think, the first thought is like, we've seen this story before, right? You're trading away players. This team made the playoffs in October, and this is where they're at right now. But the whole idea, you're going to have to win and you have to prove it over, a sustainable amount of time for people to come back and buy into it. And like I said, we'll see what the timeline is, but there seems to be a plan, right? Because I mentioned the people that are brought in, but now it's a matter of, they traded people before and then they couldn't develop them. So that's going to be the key. Can you develop these prospects? Because at the end of the day, you traded proven big leaguers, right, for prospects.
Well, and we're going to see some of those prospects today in the Marlins lineup when I look at it. And Norby's in there, Stowers is in there. Some of the young kids are in there. So, as I said before, these guys can swing the bat. The Giants are going to have to play a game today. Mason Black's going to have to be on it today. Lineup-wise, it's Yaz. Canna's in there at first base today. No Wade today. And then, of course, Ramos, Chapman, who's really hit the ball well. Then Conforto, big strikeout for him last night. He's got to do better. Fitzgerald, steal a bag, get on, use your power and your speed. Bailey hasn't really hit. And then, of course, Encarnacion, who had the big hit last night to get the rally going in the 8th inning. And then Wisely plays second, so that's the lineup. But it's Edward Cabrera, the big right-hander, and stuck it to the Giants the last time, and Mason Black. So good stuff coming up. This is going to be fun. All right, this day in Giants history next, right here in the Sports Leader.